since last century, since 1996. So I've seen a lot of change over those years, but this is like something that none of us had ever seen before. Over 50% of people are secretly using AI and not telling their boss. That doesn't help anybody because it is a super powerful tool. One of the other important parts of businesses leveraging AI is people don't realize Google was number 7. You know, there was like Lycos, Ask Jeeves, Yahoo. Yes. What are the metrics that you need to measure? There's a number of answers there. The first place to start is...
Hello, everyone. Today, the session is all about solving the biggest challenge in businesses face today, which is about leveraging AI for smart marketing. Cutting through the noise of competitive market and building long-term brand, resilience in a rapidly changing landscape. And that's where we are very pleased to invite Simon Gold. Simon has been an influencer, helping a lot of marketers across the world, especially in Sydney, have an amazing network of marketers. And he's also very well connected with a lot of agencies in Sydney as well. So Simon is founder of Sydney Digital Marketing, an award-winning agency that has helped businesses to achieve kind of 5x ROI through AI-driven marketing, automation, and data-backed strategies. With over 20 years of experience navigating through digital disruption over all these years, he has built a reputation for helping brands scale very sustainability with lower acquisition cost and still stay ahead of the industry trends and the shifts. So here we are to break down exactly how businesses can integrate AI, automation, and strategic positioning to drive sustainable growth without overwhelming their internal team. So let's dive in and welcome Simon. Really pleased to have you on this session.
Lovely. Thanks, Natal, for the almighty introduction. It's good to be on here. I'm looking forward to discussing some of the things that you mentioned before, and I think everybody who's listening to this will be well across the AI space. So LinkedIn is blowing up with it. Every single minute something new is coming out, or somebody's finding a new tool or a new way to leverage AI. And the change, as you said, I've been in the sort of MarTech online industry since last century, since 1996. So I've seen a lot of change over those years, but this is like something that none of us had ever seen before. Yeah. As exciting as it is, I love the new shiny things and I go, wow, isn't that amazing? I also, take my marketer hat off and go, wow, where is this going? Where is this leading?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. I think very, very similar observation and experience we have at Mavlers as well. We have been testing a lot of different tools, and it's very shiny and it's very tempting to get very optimistic about the accuracy of that while it's a journey. But the pace, it is changing. The pace, the tools, and their accuracy is getting refined. It's very amazing, and so let's deep dive. I think we start with that, right? So let's start with AI-driven marketing and business growth. And I'll start with my first question. The AI revolution in marketing, scaling smart, not just fast, right? Yeah. You have helped businesses, Simon, to achieve 5x ROI via early adoption of AI. So help us understand, how can companies implement AI-driven marketing strategies in a way that helps them scale and grow without overwhelming their team? What are the top 3 tips if you would love to share with the audience today?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And look, I think there's a number of answers there. I think the first place to start is, start with the problem, not the technology. start with the end in mind. What's the problem that we're trying to solve here? What are we trying to improve? What are we trying to make not only more efficient, but also effective? Because you can be efficient, you can get your work done, but if you're not doing it effectively and it's having the desired outcomes, then it's sort of net. You haven't moved forward. So I think the first thing is to look at the problems rather than the technology, and then next is obviously garbage in, garbage out. So get your data house in order first. There's so many areas that you can use these AI platforms, large language models for obviously creating content. That's sort of been the first one, the easiest one that anybody can do.
True.
The quality of the content, it still needs that critical thinking. It still needs that human intervention. I think anybody who's using AI just to cut and copy is not using AI. They're just being lazy, really. You need to. I see it on LinkedIn all the time. All of these AI auto replies, and it cheapens your brand.
Yes.
So I think you've got to make sure that if we're just talking about content, that you are sticking within your brand guidelines, your brand tone of voice, and making sure that it doesn't sound like it's been written by AI. And there's some instant giveaways, to something that's being written by AI. And then I think one of the other important parts of businesses leveraging AI is, I believe, it needs to be founder led. You need to have the guy or girl at the top saying, okay, this is how our business is going to leverage AI in order to stay relevant, in order to stay competitive, in order to stay profitable. And I think when it's founder led, and when the founder has a very clear understanding of the potential, of the opportunity, of the efficiencies that it can bring in, then it makes it very easy for the rest of the team to also come to them. I remember, last year there was a survey that went out that said, I can't remember the number, but let's say it was high. It was higher than 50%. Over 50% of people are secretly using AI and not telling their boss. And that doesn't help anybody, because it is a super powerful tool. And if you're using it to help get your work done faster, but you can maintain the quality and increase your output or increase the quality of your work, then that's got to be a good thing for any business. The other challenges that I'm seeing, and we're seeing internally, we had an all hands meeting, presentation just a week or so ago. And I ran everybody through all of the tools that I've been using, because I'm right down the rabbit hole. Again, I've been, when mobile phones started back in 1987, when the internet started in 1997, and then when digital marketing started in 2010. So I've seen a lot of these, consumer facing changes that we're seeing, and the effects they've had on business. But I went through and I explained to everybody, this is Claude. This is how we use Claude. This is ChatGPT. This is how we're using ChatGPT. This is Perplexity. This is Google Gemini. Google Gemini this week is at the top of the pile in terms of the smartest, fastest, able to do the most work. It can deal with sort of 750,000 words now in one prompt. It's amazing. Yeah, I mean, most business books are only sort of 50,000 words. So Google's, every single week, one of these platforms is leapfrogging the other. So, and then some businesses are some enterprise businesses, they're Microsoft houses, they've got Copilot built in. I didn't mention Copilot because we don't use it. It's like AI, I guess, with guardrails on. And I understand that from a lot of privacy, security, governance perspectives within enterprise.
Yep.
But one of the questions that my team had was, well, how do I remember where I'm doing this work? How do I remember whether I did it in Google or did I do it in ChatGPT or Claude? So my point here is, I guess, get to know these platforms, get to work with the ones that you feel are going to work the best for you, that give you the best output. Some are really good at coding. Some are really good at writing. Some are really good at delivering images. ChatGPT now, their image creation as part of 4.0 is very, very good, very quick, very fast, very exact. And then you got the other ones, obviously, like Mid-Journey, and that's, I guess, talking to the main frontier or foundational models. To your point, we've been using AI in the tools that we've been using have been using AI in the background for years and years and years.
Of course.
They're just now accessible.
That's right.
Yeah.
And very well pointed that it's a top-down approach. Like any organizational level change has to be top-down. Couple of things works really well for us. Because we have a large team and team is distributed remotely across India, we have been running those quarterly teams. So this quarter for our development team, it's all about leveraging AI for efficiency. Okay, now it's kind of an internal competition, and there is reward and recognition program associated with that. That who does in a best possible way, and that helps us to set up those milestones, which becomes an expectation for the larger team from the following quarter. And for the next quarter, it could be, okay, who's gonna leverage AI in a best optimal way by running some automations with the help of AI, because a lot of time people get confused with, is this an automation or it's an AI? A lot of people call it an AI, but there is no AI, it's just an automation. But yeah, how can you leverage that to make your, let's say, keyword research or your meta tag writing fast and effective and accurate? And when we run that more like a team, then entire 100 people of search marketers are working towards that, putting all their brain power into that, assessing different tools. And towards end of that quarter, we discover that these are the 3 amazing ways to leverage it and implement it with a clear use case in the business. So I think if it's top down, as an organization, you can move much faster towards the objective you want to achieve. So I think it's very well covered, Simon.
Yeah. And I think, the other thing is, obviously we've talked about content production, that seems to be getting the most oxygen. I'm not a developer, so I'm not going to talk to the effects that it's having on software development. That's just not my wheelhouse. But, in terms of being able to use it for getting started on something, those things, they sit on your task list. Everybody says, do that hard. When you start work in the morning, just do the hardest task first. It's great in theory, and it obviously takes a lot of discipline and commitment to do that. But where I find it really effective is just helping me get past that procrastination. Here's my problem. Yesterday, I came across a little bit of an issue that had been bugging me for a while. For some reason, when I send an email to somebody for the very first time, sometimes it goes to their spam folder. I said, and again, I'm not a technical person, but I knew there was something wrong with like our SPF or our DKIP or DKIM email settings somewhere, and put the problem into ChatGPT. It asked me a few questions. I gave it the answers. It told me where to go and fix it, and I fixed it. And it's been bugging me for months. And it's just one of those things I hadn't been able to get to. But again, solving problems, I think it is brilliant for solving problems.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And my team, when I spoke with my team, and they were saying, we don't want to be, we're not going to be leveraging AI to write all of this content and everything. Yep, we'll use it to ideate ideas, but we still want it to be human-led, have that human touch. And I said, fantastic. And I'm all for that.
Yeah.
But we're focusing too much on this writing content with AI and AI created spam, if you like. It's not just for creating content, it's for solving problems. It's for getting a different perspective on things. It's saying, look, here's my problem. How can you help me solve this? Giving me some different perspectives. And I think the power to be able to do that. And the biggest issue I think we face right now, obviously, is the privacy and the security of the information that we are sharing, particularly just from what I hear and read with OpenAI and ChatGPT. I think there's a bit of a trust. Well, there's I don't think there is a massive trust issue out
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, like with recent updates with images with AI, it's going on around right now. Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So there's definitely privacy and security concerns there. Obviously, you're not going to unless you build something on your own server, and it is a proprietary platform using the APIs. I think that for businesses that are looking at this going, how can we take advantage of it, but we don't want to share our proprietary information. I think that's always a good solution, because
Yep.
the fundamental platforms are there. Meta's Llama is at 3.4, I think,
Yep.
3.5. Yeah. Open source, there's still that argument about whether it's going to be closed and proprietary like OpenAI and Google and Claude, or whether it's going to be open source. So I don't remember if you remember back to the days of 98, 99. It's probably a little bit before your time, but when
Yes.
the
Yeah.
internet was taking off, and there was pet.com, and there was this massive scramble for
Yes.
everybody to
Like
grab their
those
space.
search engine days, right?
Yeah.
Like you had search engines like mushrooming, right? But then
Yahoo,
eventually,
Lycos.
yeah,
Yeah.
eventually things got consolidated. Similar things possibly going to happen the way currently things are shaping
Yeah.
up. Like DeepSeek has created major disruptions ever since they launched, and the pace they kind of now capitalizing it. So I think it's going to be an interesting space for next few years.
100%. And don't forget, people don't realize Google was number 7. There was like Lycos, Ask Jeeves, Alta Vista,
Yes,
Yahoo, several others. Google didn't come into the picture till quite late, but with a
true.
very different approach. And
Yeah.
then
RBC.
they yeah,
There they are.
yeah.
There they are. Yeah. Great, Simon. Yeah, amazing. I'm sure it's going to be very insightful for the audience. Moving on to slightly go towards the marketing automation side of things, right? Would love to know your views on balancing personalization at scale. Um,
Mm,
what are your biggest, like, according to you, what are the biggest mistakes companies make when using automation, and how they can refine their approach to enhance personalization, both for efficiency as well as for customer experience? Because
mm,
it's always like, do you do things for efficiency to make things faster, but then you lose a touch of personalization and giving that experience? So
mm.
what are your views on that, and what are the biggest mistakes companies do when they try to capitalize on marketing automation?
Mm. Look, we're a HubSpot house. We're a big proponent of HubSpot. Had HubSpot internally in the business for 8, 9 years, and been a partner of theirs for probably 6 or 7, I think. Um, so HubSpot's got a very good system in terms of that marketing automation piece, autoresponders, workflows, triggered events, lead scoring. So if we put the tools aside from it and put ourselves in the customer's shoes, people now expect a response from the business or the brand in less than an hour. I read a report literally 48 hours ago and saying today's expectation is that if they haven't got an immediate response via, say, SMS, they might have emailed. If they haven't got an immediate response to acknowledge receipt, they've moved on to get in touch with the next provider or the next service provider or the next product. So we do live in this world, where everything is instant. Our expectation now is everything is instant. So how do businesses then capitalize on that? Firstly, obviously, they need to ensure that they have um, some form of auto response that comes
Mhm.
out, to an inquiry saying, "Hey, we've just received an inquiry, and somebody from our XX team will be calling you from this number," because no one answers their phone anymore to an unknown number. So, really, from the get go, just giving that customer experience where the customer goes, oh, great, that was quick. Okay. Simon from Sydney Digital Marketing is going to be calling me on this from this number in the next hour. So instantly you created that connection with them. From an automation perspective, you need to be able to obviously segment your database. And by segment, I mean really segment. So you can really personalize according to, does this person like to receive text? Would they prefer to be emailed? Would they prefer a phone call? Or would they prefer to speak with, with an AI chatbot or something? Start to ask people, my son's a perfect example. He's 26. I've been telling this story for years. I call him, he doesn't answer. It goes to voicemail. He texts me 2 minutes later. Hey, Dad, what's up? I'm like, what's up? Is I want to speak to you. Is what's up? So I'm more for making a phone call. A lot of kids, a lot of the younger generations are more messaging, instant messaging, DMs, text messages. They don't want to talk to people. They'd much rather just have that communication without having to engage with someone. It's a whole different discussion, but without having to actually engage with the human. So I think that generation is perfectly set up to deal with AI agents, which are coming, which are now rolling out this year. Perfectly set up to deal with AI chatbots, where you can just go in and be able to query a chatbot on a website with any question, and it has full knowledge of the business that you can't get from a website. So those sorts of things are easy, low investment, low time to market tools that you can implement now to keep things personalized, to automate things, and then start to see some efficiencies. Start off with one or two areas within the business where you can actually automate something. I'm just looking at setting up an AI receptionist for Sydney Digital Marketing using 11 Labs. Their AI voice is very, very good. Sounds like you're talking to a human, and you'll be able to book an appointment in my calendar or one of the team's calendar over the phone, or even via the website. You just click a button and you can start a conversation with this AI receptionist, who will also be programmed and will also have our knowledge base on what we do, who we do it for, best customer fit, etc. So they should almost be able to qualify a new caller before handing them off into an appointment. It connects to my calendar in HubSpot, so it automatically updates HubSpot for me and drops the appointment into both the caller's calendar and into mine. So, for me, I think, well, that's sort of an easy one to implement in terms of automation. But personalization as well. People expect personalized service now. They don't want to receive a one-size-fits-all approach. So, back to the AI tool, I would be going in there as a business and going, okay, look, here's our customer journey. Inquiry comes in, it gets received by so-and-so, it gets passed on to this person within X amount of time. This person has spoken with them. They get updated in our CRM. They book maybe a discovery call or an initial chat or something. We send a proposal. So build out that customer journey, and then ask for the areas where you can personalize that, improve the personalization. And if you, again, garbage in, garbage out, you give it a really good prompt, and it can help you step through that process and say to it, guide me through how I do this step by step, as if I'm a 10-year-old or something.
Yeah, very true, very true. And a lot of time it's the journey, right? Like depends on, in my experience, depends on where you are as a business. If you're currently not at all into automation, then first is, let's start automating things to start with. And then, as you correctly mentioned, you start observing your audience and start segmenting, and then start creating personalization. A lot of times we have also seen, when you try to overcomplicate things, right, it's very hard to get through. Sometimes you don't
Yes.
have that enough volume to overcomplicate things as well. So it
Yeah.
depends on which phase of journey you are in when it comes to automation and personalization. Uh,
Yeah.
our personal experience, and we have seen amazing shift. um, the time we automate with HubSpot and then with integration with make.com, some
Mhm.
of our inquiries of prospects inquiring on a website, how can we make sure that we revert to them within 20 minutes?
Yes.
So earlier it was 2 hours SLAs for a
Mm.
person to revert and open up the conversation uh, as a human, because 20 minutes you can't assure that SLAs because person might be on a meeting, on a
Yes.
lunch, away. Now we have changed that with automation. First phase with 20 minutes SLAs of someone reverting on that inquiry, with that hope that person inquiring for a service might be still on their desktop,
Mm.
browsing through other options or working
Yes.
on other things. And
Yes.
the probability for you to book a meeting with them in that 20-minute span is
Yeah.
much higher compared to losing them with the 2 hours or 3 hours response time.
Of
Uh,
course.
and once we crack that, we have seen our booking ratio has gone up by 28%
Brilliant.
from the past. And then we started working on personalization. That, okay, now how can we add personalization into that automation
Yes.
in terms of what they have inquired, which page they have landed on the website, which page they're inquiring from. So
Yes.
as you mentioned, it's a journey, and you have to look at both segments by giving equal weightage.
Yeah. And it's important to, what really are the metrics that matter? What are the metrics that you need to measure? As you said, dropping that gap from 2 hours to 20 minutes and having that in there as, as a KPI for your team. But again, how does that then affect the bottom line as
That's
well?
right.
If your bookings have gone up by almost 30%, that should have a significant effect just from that one little change.
Of course.
Nothing different other than getting in touch with people faster, servicing them faster, giving them a better customer experience. And I think, technology, yes, competition, yes, but by giving them the very best customer experience, that gets them talking about you and gets them, you've solved their problem. They're sitting there going, I have a need, I have a problem, who's going to solve it for me? And as you
Yeah.
said, they're going from one to the next to the next. So if you can have
Absolutely.
that conversation first, you've got a much higher chance of forming a business relationship and closing the deal.
Yeah, very true. Very true. Great, great. I'm enjoying the conversation. Such an amazing insights. Um, Simon, you are big on authenticity as a business, right? And
Yes.
would love to know your uh, intel on, as agencies grows, right? They often risk becoming too corporate or losing their personality that made them appealing at the first point.
Mm.
Uh, and you always emphasize and how big the authenticity plays a role in a decision making in any business relationship. In
Yes.
fact, I've also read your post where you mentioned how 88% of the customer value is when deciding what brands they want to trust. Um, so would love to know, in what are your suggestions on how can agencies maintain that authentic personality while scaling up and expanding into larger markets?
Look, I can only speak from my personal experience. We've seen some agencies, and you would know them as well, certainly locally here in Australia, just explode, go from 10 to 20 to 30 to 100 to 200 staff.
Yeah,
And amazing. Like, I can only imagine the stresses and the strains that must put on a business internally as well. um I think, yeah, authenticity from um, people buy from people. Gone are the days now, big brands and small brands are coming around to this realization now that it's not about having the investing, hundreds of thousands of dollars, unless you've got that sort of budget, into shiny videos and shiny sort of content and creative. Being authentic just means you're not going to resonate with everybody, but you're going to resonate with the people. If those people are resonating with you, then they're the sorts of people that you want to do business with, and you're probably going to get along with anyway. We've all come across people where sales gone really, really well. They think it's all going to be a great partnership, a great relationship, and then, like any relationship, whether it's personal or professional, for whatever reason, it goes sour. It goes downhill, and more and more companies, more and more people that I'm seeing, certainly on LinkedIn, where I sort of hang out the most from a social media perspective, are saying that they're just getting very, very choosy now on the types of people that they want to work with. And so being authentic up front, telling your story, putting yourself out there. I put that reel up last week, and I rolled over 12,000 followers on LinkedIn. And looking back over that, I was like, wow, man, that's a lot of video content that I put out. But what happens is, over the years of doing video on Facebook and YouTube, and predominantly now on LinkedIn, people come to me and they say, you know what, Simon, I've been following your stuff for 2 years, possibly even longer. I haven't been ready to have a conversation with you, but now I'm ready to have a conversation with you, because they feel like they've made a connection. They feel like I'm turning up consistently every single week with a piece of content that resonates with them. And I'm on the journey too. I'm building a business. You're building a business. They're building a business. So I think to be able to get out there and not put on any, what I would say, sort of airs and graces, and just to be able to tell it how it is, I think that's important. And I think that does resonate with people that are looking to cut through the noise and the BS that's out there. And so that has worked really well for me. And I try now to encourage others on LinkedIn to go out or whatever platform it is, to do the same. Tell their story, tell their business story. There's so many amazing people out there running amazing businesses that you've never heard of, and you don't know their story, and they're stuck at $2 million a year or $3 million a year or $1 million a year. They just can't bust through. But suddenly we have this platform where we can get out and tell this story. So I think authenticity is hugely important in in today's world, full stop, but certainly in today's business world.
Yeah, true, 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 true. And as much as important the authenticity as you as a person, you as a business, it is. I think in today's competitive world, like your value proposition is also very crucial. Would love to get your opinion on value proposition framework, right? That framework which defines your value proposition as a business. And there's I believe we happened to talk earlier as well that there is a strategizer, which is the business model canvas, also talks about value proposition canvas and how it helps businesses to stand out. I would love
Yes.
for you to share to the audience. What are your views on that? Can you walk us through how senior leaders can utilize that framework to craft the killer value proposition and leverage that to grow their business?
Sure. I think we take it back a step. I'll talk to sort of my experience with that, and trying to define that, because for a lot of business owners, founders, leaders, it becomes really difficult when you're in a competitive marketplace. What makes us truly different? Some people say, oh, it's our people. But you know what? The people down the road, they're saying, you know what makes us different? It's our people. So we all have the best people in the world. We all have the best team in the world. So sadly, it is a differentiator, of course, but it's not one that you can go out and differentiate yourself with.
Yeah.
Price is another one. Obviously, you can say we're the cheapest. The next person is going to come along and they're going to be cheaper. So that's always a race to the bottom. So we start now. I think digital marketing obviously has changed over the last 10, 12, 13 years or so. Before, when Facebook was first monetizing, and Google Ads it was so easy to throw up Google Ads and you become a millionaire in a month. Become much more competitive, much more complex, and much noisier. The smartphone has just taken all of our attention of all ages. So how do you cut through? So, the first thing is to understand your audience. Know exactly who your buyer is, whether you call it a persona, an ICP, the ideal client profile, but really get to know what are the things that keep them awake at night. What are their motivations? I put that post out a couple of weeks ago as well. I ride an electric skateboard. I want to upgrade my electric skateboard. I might be marketed to for speed and power and flashing lights or something. But my underlying motivation to upgrade my skateboard is that I take my daughter to school on it once or twice a week. Have done for years. And she's getting older. She's getting bigger. She's getting heavier. So I need a stronger skateboard, not necessarily a faster or more powerful one. So I wanted to use that to demonstrate, there's always underlying factors that drive our purchasing decisions. What are we trying to solve? So going through the exercise, and we do like a 3-hour discovery workshop now with new clients that come on board, and we pull the business apart, and then we get to the audience section. Age, where do they live? What's their income? What do they do for a job? That's all the basic demographic stuff. But the psychographics, why would they buy from you? Why wouldn't they buy from you? What problems are they looking to solve? And then how do you solve those problems? And once you compile all of that information, that's the audience part. Then we start looking at the business. What is it that you actually do? Let's really nut down on that USP, what's unique about your business. And then we go to see, it's the ABC methodology, we go to see which is the competition. What are the other guys doing? Let's have a look over the fence. Who's winning? What keywords are they using? What's their website performance, the website experience like? Maybe what tech stack do they have? Once we've got all of that information, then you're able to articulate your difference directly to your audience, who, because you now understand their pain points and their challenges and why they would need you, you can now, this isn't my saying, but I'd love it, it's Dan Kennedy, the message to market match. So it's messaging, getting your messaging right to match your market. That has made all the difference to the success of our campaigns as an agency in the last 5 years versus the first 5 years. In the first 5 years, it was, build a campaign. We know Facebook, we know AdWords, we know digital marketing, we know SEO. Let's just go for it. But over the years, it's got far more complex, and the psychographics, the psychometrics part of the marketing piece has become so much more important now. Before you spend $1 on, before you give $1 to Google or give $1 to Facebook or LinkedIn. So I think any business that hasn't done that work and is trying to scale and trying to market is going to struggle. I don't want to say fail, but they're going to struggle. They're going to keep saying, why isn't my marketing working? Oh, we had this agency and they promised us the world. And then a year later, all we get is an invoice and a report that says they sent us 10,000 visits or something.
Very true. Like, it's like any other startup, right? You go through a PMF stage of figuring it out, your product market fit. Before you apply a GTM strategy, go to market strategy to grow your business. And when you are at a PMF stage, very crucial is to understand the audience, which is the right audience for the problem you're trying to solve, their pain areas, how your solutions fits into their needs, and turning their pains into gains, and leverage those solutions then to scale when
Yeah.
you go ahead with your go-to-market strategy. Like I mentioned, we follow a website called Strategizer, who has two frameworks. One is called Business Model Canvas, and
Hmm.
second is Value Proposition Canvas. The
Hmm.
Business Model Canvas is all about identifying who's the ICP, your
Yeah.
ideal customer persona is, so
Yeah.
that before you start investing and start thinking of scaling, you need to have a clarity on that, because a lot of time you may be good at acquisition and you may acquire those customers by burning a lot of money, or even, let's say, investing a lot of funds. But then if you're not able to serve them, if they're not
Mm.
your ICP, you won't be able to grow them or retain them. You're not
Correct.
going to get your ideal lifetime value from those customers.
Yeah.
Ultimately, you're going to realize after 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, that for what I have done all this investment for. And the
Correct.
value proposition canvas is constantly looking at what pain areas your ICPs goes through, and
Mm.
how you alter your solutions or modify your solutions. Like you mentioned earlier in the conversation, that we are living in a world where one size fits all doesn't work. So
No,
how can
that's
you
right.
constantly figuring it out what solution works uh, against the pain areas your customer is going through, and then you kind of define your value proposition canvas from that. So yeah,
Yeah.
amazing insight and a great
Yeah.
example of a skateboard. You going through that journey of kind of figuring it out, your need changes, and how do you adopt and look
Yeah.
out for the right skateboard for you.
Obviously, analogies are a great thing, but I use it because it's something different. Not many 57-year-olds I know, ride an electric skateboard. Not many 57-year-olds I know have got an 8-year-old daughter. So it's something I feel that can stand out and tell a bit of a story with an analogy just to get people to think, okay, what are the things that keep me awake at night when I'm making a decision? What are the things that would keep my customers awake at night before they reach out? And I think one other thing, just to add to that piece as well,
Yep.
is a lot of businesses more than marketers, focus on this 5% of people that are in market at any one time. Doesn't matter what the product is, somewhere between 3 and 5% of people are in market for your product or service at any one time. But there's 95, 97% of people that aren't in market for you, but maybe at some time drop into that 5%. So, and you guys would have seen this as well, the cost of performance marketing has increased dramatically over the last 12, 18, 24 months. So investing in that brand piece, investing in that, hi, here we are, introducing us, this is what we do, not asking you to give us your email address or anything just yet, but just, that building that brand awareness piece is so important, because if you can make your budget, if you've got budget to invest in that very much top of funnel or brand awareness piece, that's going to pay dividends down the track. It's not going to pay dividends this month or next month or the month after, but 6, 12 months time, you'll have been in somebody's face, a little bit like my videos, turning up every single week, putting them out there, trying to add some value. And then when the time comes, people get in touch and they say, "Hey, I've been following your videos. You know, we'd love to have a conversation." So I think doing that ABC, understanding your audience, really getting to know your USP within your business, knowing what the competition are doing, but then not just going, okay, cool, let's go to market and go for everybody who's searching for, clear water bottles or something, because you haven't built any trust. No one knows who you are. Why should I buy from you?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, very well. And that also brings me to another question, Simon. That you are always big advocate of brand building, like you mentioned. How can businesses stay on top of mind for the right persona, even if they're not having the buying intent today? Eventually, when they're going to reach to that buying intent, if your brand is on top of their head, right,
Yes.
that's where a brand should desire to be. There is also an interesting um, the terminology going on from last couple of years. It's called zero click marketing. With the amount of content we all consume
Yes.
on social media, there is a cookieless world we are entering into, that audience is not necessarily landing on your website where you can cookie them or retarget them or see them as your visitors sessions, right? Lot happens with zero click marketing,
Yes.
and in a cookieless world where brand building becomes very crucial. Would love to have your opinion, and what are your strategy, or is there any brand building framework would you suggest to your customers where uh, what should a brand do to stay on top of the audience? Um, and is there any specific framework or tips or suggestions you would like to share?
Um, Look, I think first party data is critical for any business. We've been there's two sides to the story. Consumers, the internet users have been followed around the internet by cookies for far too long with no permission. Obviously, very, very different now in the EU, but certainly if I'm just talking from the Australian market perspective, and our data has been used for, yeah, obviously digital marketing purposes, but for all sorts of purposes. So I think the move away from cookies is a good thing from a privacy perspective. We back in the early days, 2010, 11, 12, you know, likes on Facebook, followers on Facebook was enormous. How many followers did you have on Facebook? I remember building pages for clients of ours. 50,000, 100,000, 150,000 people. Suddenly they had this enormous audience of people to talk to, and then Facebook just switched off. We spent all that money in time investing in content and creative to build that audience and access to that audience, and Facebook just went to monetize everything and said, well, now it's pay to play. um and we became the product and still are. So we're at the mercy of these platforms. No one owns their audience. If you're on Instagram, you've got 3 million followers. They almost shut TikTok down earlier in
Yes.
the year in the US. So owning that first party data is critical. Owning the ability to be able to email somebody, whether it's email or phone number, to be able to have that one-to-one conversation so that we're not having to pay Google and Facebook and all of the platforms all of the time in order to appear to appear there. The other thing I would add to that is probably context. Like, where are your ads or your content being shown? I
Mhm.
see clients that come to us. I go around the internet all the time and I see their display ads being shown. I go, oh, those people just, obviously I get shown their ads because I just went onto their website to check them out.
Yep.
So I'm being retargeted. I'm going, man, that ad on this website, that makes no sense at all, because, the GDN network just, if it's not managed properly, it just throws
Yeah.
you out everywhere. And the agency sends you a report and goes, we served up 1 million impressions. How's sales going? And you're like, well, yeah, you served up 1 million impressions on this site where I would never want my brand to be associated with.
True.
So I think it's important that you pay attention to the context in which your brand is being seen. But the key here, as we move to cookieless, whenever that is, it's been pushed out and pushed out and pushed out, is first party data. Owning that first party data.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, and that's where I think the HubSpot coined term like revenue operations, bringing
Yeah.
that single customer view is becoming very crucial, because now you don't look at the customer from a single dimension. Like, you look at your marketing channels, your sales acquisition, and your customer success and growth effort,
Yes.
combining it all, how it is helping and contributing towards your RevOps or revenue operation initiatives.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. I mean, the power of HubSpot that it's created just for us as an agency, let alone our clients. Um, if I just keeping my agency hat on, how does it help us? We see the quality of the leads and inquiries coming through into HubSpot if we're running campaigns, and then we're able to see which one of those results in a sale, in a paid customer or a subscribing customer or purchase. And then we're able to use that data to feed immediately back into some of the campaigns that we're running. So we're always optimizing to sale rather than optimizing for lead. And if we optimize to sale, it means we're optimizing to quality, which means, sure, you might get a few less leads, but the quality of them is, 80% up, 8 out of 10, rather than getting, 1,000 leads and they're 3 out of 10.
Yeah, true. Okay. Simon, I think one final question, and I know it's going to be a little bit broad, but a lot of businesses have gone through a very uncertain time over the last 2-3 years with a lot of shifts from a global economic standpoint, a lot of shift with AI automation standpoint. What are your opinion? Are there any strategies, tips, suggestions you would love to suggest for businesses to stay most effective while balancing their growth along with profitability and keeping that long-term brand resilience at center? Because there's always a chase, right? Like, do you want to chase profitability when the markets are tough? Do you want to focus on growth, or how do you balance in the juggle of profitability and scale your long-term brand resilience and brand value?
Yeah, I mean, growth definitely creates stress points within the business. As we say in Australia, and you might be outside Australia as well, you can walk the walk, because you can talk the talk, but can you walk the walk? And it means that anybody can create a story and do great selling, but then when it comes to the execution side of things, everything falls apart, or expectations aren't being managed. So I think you need to, from a growth perspective, building on, if I use the analogy Lego blocks, build maybe your tech stack. As you're expanding, you want your tech stack to be like Lego blocks. You don't want it to be like a beautiful sculpture or something. You want to be able to pull things out and to be able to put things back in. So always, I guess, planning for that growth, planning to term future proof is a little bit tricky to use at the moment because the future is so uncertain. So good luck if you can future proof your business. I think, being able to have key components of your business, whether that's sales, service, marketing, retention, all of those things all need to be talking to each other, and you need to be able to identify where the stresses in the business are going to come from as you scale. Is it going to be in execution? Is it going to be in delivery? Is it going to be in, if you're selling a product, physical product, is it going to be in that? How does that experience land with somebody? They've ordered something, and instead of it taking them 2 days, it's taken 5 days because you got so busy and you haven't been able to fulfill the order quickly enough. So from our perspective, client to manager ratios, how many clients can a key account manager manage before that the quality of their work starts to drop. So being very, very aware, or having people within the business that are aware, that can see perhaps those stresses coming. So, open communication with your team is obviously the first place to start. But, those would be the key main things. And I think that the other thing is, coming back to sort of the main theme of this conversation, which has been AI, is get onto YouTube or get onto some clever AI influencers on LinkedIn, sign up to some of the LinkedIn AI groups with, hundreds of thousands of followers. They've got good content in there, and really start to grasp what the opportunity is for your business, as well as the threat that AI is going to bring. And I'm not talking about the fact that we can make pretty pictures like that and funny pictures like that and create a 2,000 word blog post, but really, what are the threats to your business that all of a sudden one person can set themselves up with a team of AI agents, and they're just sitting there managing those AI agents to get out there and do the work.
Yeah. No, I think so. To summarize it, you very well covered. So three things. A, look at the business fundamental or tech stack as like Lego blocks. Look at which areas requires the most attention in your growth journey ahead, and try to structure it, which is more stable, more stronger. But at the same time, you can take off the blog and replace it with the new blog, but your
Correct.
fundamental and structure remains intact. You mentioned staying across the business, hearing from your people, being observant on where they're struggling, where they're going to burn out. So basically, look at the critical metrics of the business to ensure that you're going in the right direction towards growth while maintaining the profitability. And
And,
because we are, yeah,
and the quality and the quality.
and the
Yeah.
quality is
Yeah.
maintained and it's been delivered to
Mm.
what customers are experiencing or what customer has been promised. And the
Correct.
third thing, because we are going through that phase of pragmatic changes, so staying ahead of the curve by being part of these AI influencers, AI groups, following AI influencers, absorbing
Yeah.
content to always stay vigilant on what
Yeah.
is coming, how it is going to disrupt your industry, your business, and how
Yeah.
can you adopt that timely to stay ahead of the competition compared to all other competitors out there today.
Mm.
Amazing. So glad to have you, Simon. And I really appreciate you joining us. I know you're not keeping 100% from the health perspective, under the weather a little bit, but we really appreciate you contributing to our audience. And I'm sure the intel and insights you have shared with some very tactical tricks on how to start implementing it straight away into the business.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Thanks,
Yeah.
Natas. Always good to catch up with you. Thank you.
Yes. Perfect.